well, you probably went to play sports, and everybody had a reason to go to school and be on a sports team. Competing against each other, and I think growing up, we lived on Sunnyside, and there was. Hold on, just be quiet. You just have this opportunity where you want to get something going and accomplish something, and that's what I'm hoping to do by being a member of the museum. And it's fun to hang out at the Farmers Fair every year at the museum and just see old friends that comes through the door. And I just enjoy it. I never thought I was popular until I got old. So that, and I'm just glad I'm around, and let's just say I hope we can make something go out of the museum. So that's what I'm here for, is to make it go, and hopefully we'll be able to see it down the road. Grow more members. So
I wanted to ask you, you talked about your coaches and some of your friends. Talk more about some of the teachers that you remember.
Well, probably teachers probably don't think I remember a lot of them, but I remember Mrs. Pitcock. I remember her husband was Marvin Pitcock, and he coached for the Lawrenceburg, and I remember how we weren't too kind to her when it came to Aurora Lawrenceburg battles, because nobody had any kind words for her during that time. Most of my teachers taught me well, and I wasn't an easy student. I wasn't an easy learner, but I was at school every day. I didn't miss a day. The only time I missed in 12 years of school is I missed 1 week when I had a knee injury in football in my sophomore year in high school, and I missed a week of school, and that was the longest week I think I ever went through. Was just getting through that 1 week of not being able to go to school. At that time, if I had the opportunity, I would have went to school, even if I would have had gone on crutches. But at that time, I guess you couldn't wear your jeans or your pants, so you couldn't go to school.
Talk about why you were at school every day.
Why was what would you do? Well, I mean, if all your friends were at school.
Well, let me put it another way. Today, a lot of the kids get driven to school. They get chauffeured to school by their mom or their dad or their grandparents, or they ride the bus. How did you get to school every day?
Well, early years, we were driven to the school by our mother, and then we would take a bus back from the school to Sunnyside, and can't think of what his name, but he used to take us. He rode the bus out Sunnyside and went out to Ebenezer, and next thing you know, high school, I walked to school because I was that close to school where I could walk to school and be there in 10 minutes. So, I mean, Shoe Leather Express was always on. Shoe Leather Express. I remember getting tennis shoes, so all you needed to go to school was tennis shoes, and tennis shoes were allowed and senior year, believe this or not, senior year, we were finally allowed to wear blue jeans to school. Senior year in high school in 1968 and 69. Their draft code had really changed, and they were just starting to wear long hair. Long hair was just starting to come in at the time, but it couldn't go past your collar. Being on a football team, I didn't have long hair anyway because nobody played football if they had long hair, and you got haircut anyway. So,
talk about where you went when you came to town and some of the
well,
stores that you remember.
Well, everybody knows why we came to town. You came to town for two reasons, and that was to go to the movies. And after the movies, you went to the Horrocks drugstore. Man, there's some that went to the Wagon Wheel. There was the Five and Dime store at the time. But biggest reason was the movies. You went to see the movies and go to the drugstore and sit down and have a fountain drink. And just like that movie, Back to the Future, it took everybody back and remember going in and sitting down at the fountain and getting a fountain Coke with cherry Coke before cherry Coke ever came on, or a vanilla Coke, or some type of flavor was in your Coke. But everybody went to town and they went to the movie, and then afterwards they got together and they had a sandwichers. And then I also remember you knew it was Saturday night because if you was around Aurora, by the time 6 o'clock came around, it was like the streets were rolled up, and everybody that had anything to do with the 2nd and Main Street, the streets were all rolled up. We were also at the tail end of having places to go like the canteen that others have mentioned at the time, where school kids from each class and everything went to the canteen. And you meet there, and what was the canteen? That was a place where we went and danced and just hung out. But everybody danced and listened to the music. And everybody knows the 60s was the Beatles and the Beach Boys and everybody that wanted to become a musician after the Beatles, because everybody thought that the Beatles were something, they were big time. And then you started seeing your classmates get together and perform and form a band. I was never musical, so I never went to join out and try out for any bands.
You say you aren't musical. What were some of your favorite groups and songs and things you remember?
Well, when I first started up, I guess I was like everybody else, and I did love. I don't think I ever really loved music, but I liked country music, and there was a time when I really liked Loretta Lynn when she came out, and I liked Dolly Parton. I liked all the male groups that you had at that time, which was, and
I thought that was Richard.
Elvis Presley was big, and who would not want to be and act like Elvis Presley? He was it. And then there was I don't know, but
back when you on the end of, or I guess you'd say your high school days, there was a big concert. Now, was that while you were in school, or did everybody gathered in Woodstock? What do you remember about those times? Were you gone?
Well, I was gone and in the Army before Woodstock. So I was part of the Army, and that was also, the Woodstock happened because of the Vietnam War. And it was a kind of a modern day protest of the Vietnam War, and they were there for one thing and one thing only, and that was they had fun. That was a different type of fun that I ever had in my times in the military. But once you went into the military, then you also you got stigmatized by, at that time, everybody calling an individual a baby killer because he was a member of the Army, United States Army, and nobody understood what happened during that period. But the best thing that I could say that happened to that period is, if you take the average age of a male that was in the United States Army or Marines, they were probably 17 to 19 years old, fresh out of high school, and they went to Vietnam, and the maturity level of a World War II veteran that went to World War II was 25. So you're talking about anywhere from 8 to 6 years older than, and that should just show. I mean, you're talking about sending kids to Vietnam that probably never even went hunting in their life, and giving a weapon and telling you to go hunting somebody else. Now, it was a different reason. We can sit here and we can all talk about what if or what have you. Was it necessary? All I can say is that when you go into the Army and you take the oath and you make a vow that you will follow the orders and protect the Constitution of the United States against all foreign and domestic, then once you take that oath, it becomes part of you. And the war changes people. I mean, and a lot of people never come back, and a lot of people, those that do come back, they don't talk about it, especially those that were in it. And there's a lot that do come back, and they have to talk about it, or maybe I think we see a little bit of examples of that every day, of people just going off, and nobody knows why. They always say, why does this happen? Well, nobody knows the reason why, but I think inside of us there's only so much that one can put in a system before something erupts and something you overreact or you underreact or whatever. But I don't look at bad times. I always look at good times. I've always been a fun play. Even in the Army, even though that I was doing everything, I looked at it half the time, all we were doing were playing. I was fortunate enough that I never went to Vietnam. I went to Germany, and then at the end of my career, instead of being Desert Storm, the first one, that was the next war after the Vietnam, I was in Korea. And Korea, no matter what people say about Korea, there's still a North Korea and a South Korea, and there hasn't been a declaration to end that war since there was a ceasefire ordered, but there was never an end of the war in the Korean War. There was never an end to it. And their objective was they wanted to do in Vietnam what they did in Korea, but there was more than just Vietnam. There was Cambodia, there was Laos, there was other countries that the enemy could go into, but United States soldiers could not go after them into that country. So battlefields change, rules of engagement change, and it just doesn't. There's a lot of change happened from the 1960s to compared to today. Some people say, well, we have a lot of freedom today. I think we have the wrong freedom today. It's not what the freedom we should have. It's the freedom that we take for granted and think that, well, I don't have to do that because that's against my freedom or what have you. But sometimes taking away somebody's rights is stepping on another person's rights. So that's the only thing I can say on that. But being that I'm a happy-going person, I try to always see on the brighter side of life and not on the dark side. And there's not too many places I went that I've ever did not meet somebody that I did not like or didn't become friends. So, yeah. I think growing up in Aurora, Buck Krantz, he was my scoutmaster at the time, and he was adult leader that I really looked up to when I was a kid, because if Buck said it, that's the way it is. I remember him taking me to, we used to have Indian dances down at Camp Louis Ernest, and Pat Kern and I had a skit where he was a little Indian boy and I was this big, mean, tough warrior that was on his left leg, and he was out looking for food or anything that he could find. And we used to do this skit, and I remember going down there one summer, and I'm into my high school career and end of the scouting, but I was growing a beard. I wouldn't say I was growing a beard, but I had whiskers, and I was going one time and Buck handed me a razor on the way down there, an electric razor, and said, "Here, I want you to shave that off." And I think it pulled every darn whisker that I had out my face, all the way from there down to Camp Louis Ernest. But those were some of the fun times too that I really enjoyed. So that's why I say I always look at the happy part of life and not the sad part or not the bad parts. Life has been great to me. So that's all I can say. And I would just like to end it in saying, if you're from the Aurora High School, come down and tell us your story. We want to hear from you. If you went to Aurora High School, what did it mean to you? And what did going to Aurora High School prepare you for in your life? So that's all I got to say.
Thank you. That was great.
Was that great? Well, after you said it the other night and everything, I had time to think about it. I said, why not do it? Well,
We need to have these conversations.
huh?
We need to have these conversations.
Well, we need to find out. There's a whole lot more of them. There's a whole lot more of them out there that's got them. It's just getting them in here to do it. So,
Thank you. Fantastic.
You're all right, Richard.
Fantastic.
All right, now everybody's been trying to get my attention.
Whitney's 30.
One missed call.